lost him, and now you're stuck in that chair forever. How could you do this?
Vanessa, stop!
She couldn't walk, but she trusted the men she loved with her whole heart. While she sat helpless in a wheelchair, another woman walked into her home, laughed at her pain, and slowly stole everything she had: her husband, her marriage, and her happiness. The husband believed every lie, until one hidden security camera exposed the shocking truth. By then, it was almost too late. What happened next changed all three of their lives forever. Before we go deeper into this extraordinary story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. David Anderson was one of the most respected architects in Chicago. At 42, he had built luxury hotels, owned a beautiful mansion, and lived a life most people envied. But behind the expensive cars and glamorous lifestyle was a man carrying deep pain. 5 years earlier, his wife, Sarah Anderson, had been involved in a terrible highway accident while returning from a charity event. Although she survived, she lost the use of both legs. Doctors told her she would never walk again. David refused to leave her side. "I married you for better or worse," he told her. "Nothing will ever change that." Sarah smiled through tears. For a while, everything seemed stable. David hired the best nurses, built ramps throughout the mansion, and even installed an elevator so Sarah could move comfortably. But life slowly became lonely. David spent longer hours at work. Sarah remained home, believing she had become a burden. Months turned into years. One afternoon, David hired a new executive assistant named Vanessa Brooks. Vanessa was 30 years old, beautiful, confident, fashionable, and extremely ambitious. She admired David's success. Soon admiration became obsession. She began staying late after work, bringing him coffee, organizing his meetings, and constantly complimenting him. David appreciated her professionalism. But Vanessa wanted far more. She secretly believed Sarah no longer deserved David because of her disability. One evening, she deliberately asked, "Don't you ever get tired of taking care of someone who can't even stand beside you?" David looked uncomfortable. "Sarah is my wife." Vanessa smiled. "But she's not really living anymore." David didn't answer. Those words stayed in his mind. Over the following months, Vanessa slowly manipulated him. She constantly reminded him that he deserved happiness. She invited him to business dinners that became personal dinners. Eventually, David crossed a line he never imagined. He began an affair. Sarah noticed the distance immediately. David stopped eating dinner with her. He answered phone calls outside. Business trips became more frequent. Although her heart suspected the truth, she chose silence. One afternoon, Vanessa insisted on visiting the mansion. David hesitated but eventually agreed because Sarah was supposedly asleep. When Vanessa entered the luxurious home, she noticed Sarah sitting quietly in her wheelchair by the garden window. Instead of showing kindness, Vanessa laughed softly. "So that's the famous wife." Sarah greeted her politely. "You must be David's assistant." Vanessa smiled arrogantly. "I suppose." She walked around Sarah slowly. "It must be difficult, depending on everyone." Sarah remained calm. "Some days are harder than others." Vanessa leaned closer. "I'd rather die than live like this." Sarah's smile faded. David returned before the conversation continued. Vanessa behaved as though nothing had happened. After that visit, her cruelty only grew worse. Whenever David was away, Vanessa secretly visited the mansion. She insulted Sarah. She mocked her wheelchair. She rearranged furniture so Sarah couldn't reach important items. One afternoon she intentionally pushed Sarah's wheelchair slightly away from her medication table. Sarah struggled for nearly an hour before the housekeeper returned. The elderly housekeeper, Mrs. Helen, witnessed everything through the security cameras. She quietly saved copies of the recordings. She had worked for Sarah since before the accident. Something felt terribly wrong. Meanwhile, David became increasingly distant. Vanessa convinced him that Sarah exaggerated her struggles just to keep him feeling guilty. "You've sacrificed enough," Vanessa whispered. "You deserve someone who can enjoy life with you." David slowly believed her. Then tragedy struck. Sarah developed pneumonia and was admitted to the hospital. While she recovered, Vanessa practically moved into David's life. She attended business events beside him. People assumed she was his partner. Sarah heard the rumors. She never complained. Instead, she prayed. Weeks later, Sarah returned home weaker than before. Vanessa visited again. This time David wasn't home. She stood in front of Sarah's wheelchair with folded arms. "You should divorce him." Sarah looked surprised. "Why?" "Because he'll eventually choose me." Sarah quietly replied. "If that's what he truly wants, I'll let him go." Vanessa laughed loudly. "You really are pathetic." Mrs. Helen overheard everything from the hallway. Again, she preserved the security footage. Months passed. David finally filed for divorce. Sarah signed the papers without argument. She only asked for one thing. "I don't want your money. I only want peace." David felt strangely empty. The divorce became final. Only 3 months later, Vanessa married David. She celebrated with luxury parties, designer dresses, and social media photos. Everyone admired their glamorous lifestyle. But the happiness lasted only weeks. Vanessa's personality changed completely. She criticized David constantly. She spent enormous amounts of money. She demanded a larger mansion. She fired loyal employees. She treated everyone disrespectfully. David realized he had made a terrible mistake. One evening he returned home earlier than expected. He overheard Vanessa talking on the phone. "I never loved David. I only wanted his money. He was easy to manipulate because of that crippled wife." David froze. His heart pounded. Vanessa continued laughing. That woman was too weak to fight back. David quietly walked away. His world collapsed. For the first time, he remembered every warning Sarah had silently ignored. The next morning, Mrs. Helen requested a meeting. "I think you need to see something." She handed David several security recordings. For hours he watched. Every insult. Every cruel laugh. Every act of humiliation. Every moment Sarah suffered in silence. He watched Vanessa move Sarah away from her medicine. He watched Sarah cry after Vanessa left. He watched Mrs. Helen comforting her. David couldn't stop crying. He realized Sarah had protected him from guilt by never telling him the truth. Ashamed, he confronted Vanessa. Instead of apologizing, she smiled. "So what? She's just your ex-wife." David ended the marriage immediately. Vanessa tried to demand millions through the divorce. But investigators soon uncovered financial fraud she had committed within David's company. She was arrested and later convicted for embezzlement and document forgery. David sold his mansion. None of it mattered anymore. He spent weeks searching for Sarah. Finally, Mrs. Helen revealed where she lived. Sarah had quietly moved into a peaceful rehabilitation community near a lake. When David arrived, he found her painting children during an art therapy session. She looked happier than she had in years. He slowly approached. "I'm sorry." Sarah looked at him. He continued. "I failed you. I believed lies. I abandoned the person who loved me most." Tears rolled down Sarah's face. "I forgave you a long time ago." David fell to his knees. "I don't deserve forgiveness." She smiled gently. "None of us deserve it. We choose it." Months passed. David never pressured Sarah to return. Instead, he volunteered at the rehabilitation center every weekend. He pushed wheelchairs. He repaired buildings. He donated equipment. Not to impress Sarah, but because he had finally learned compassion again. One spring morning, doctors introduced Sarah to a new rehabilitation program using advanced robotic therapy. The treatment was difficult. Painful. Slow. David encouraged her every single day. After nearly a year of determination, something extraordinary happened. Supported by parallel bars and therapists, Sarah stood on her feet. For only a few seconds. But she stood. Everyone applauded. David cried openly. Sarah smiled. It isn't about walking. It's about never giving up. 2 years later, Sarah could walk short distances with specialized braces and a cane. Life looked different now. Not perfect, but peaceful. David never stopped earning back her trust. One evening they sat beside the same lake where she had rebuilt her life. David quietly asked, "Would you give us another chance?" Sarah looked toward the sunset. Then she reached for his hand. This time, we walked together. And for the first time in many years,